like when you look back at January 2025 after the Saints game when he had his 1,000 yard moment against the Saints, you couldn't have told me that Mike Evans would be leaving. And then fast forward just about 13, 14 months later, and he's gone. And I'm not really shocked as I would have been, like a couple months ago, because, based on the Bucs end to last season when they lost 7 of 9 games, they really slipped from where they were as one of the best teams. Now there's just so much uncertainty. And for Mike Evans, he only has a couple more seasons left to maybe get another Super Bowl ring. And his confidence level doing it in Tampa Bay, I don't think it's that high, and understandably so.
And as someone who's covered the Bucs for a while now, what has Mike Evans meant not only in that locker room, but really in the Tampa Bay area?
He means a ton. And when you look at it, he's one of the few players that he's in the locker room, he's doing a press conference, and you just feel like there's a certain glow, there's a certain aura about him. And it's his fiery leadership. You saw it on display against the Falcons when he's like 3rd and 28, just voicing his frustration about things that are going on. Not many players within the Bucs locker room, Johnny, really do that. And to lose him, you're not only losing a Hall of Fame wide receiver, 1,000 yard guy, you're losing a leader. You're losing a guy who has a C on his chest, and that's impossible to replace. You might be able to replace the production, the touchdowns, but you can't replace Mike and the legacy that he has in Tampa Bay through his foundation. He's helped so many kids over the years. He's helping the community constantly, donating money to different causes. It's a monumental blow.
When we talk about just in terms of strictly on field, what does the rest of this Bucs receiver room look like?
So it's still promising. Now you have Chris Godwin, he just turned 30 years old last month, and maybe he's a little bit better coming off of his dislocated ankle injury, another year removed. Then you have Emeka Ibuka and Jalen McMillan. They're young, promising wide receivers. They battled injuries, and for Ibuka, he struggled in the second half. But there's a reason that Tampa Bay has drafted so much at the wide receiver position. I feel like they were kind of, coming to terms that the Mike and Chris show might be over. So it's still promising. You have those three. Then you have Tez Johnson, who had 5 touchdowns last year. He's solid in moments. And then Sterling Shepard, I think, is someone who's going to be re-signed. He's going to be that other veteran in the room, if you will. But they're really going to be relying on these rookies and these young players to take a step up.
When we, because some of the chatter around obviously Twitter and all of that is that Mike Evans leaving is kind of an indictment or can be seen as an indictment on the organization and the chances to be a realistic Super Bowl contender in the last couple of years of his career. What do you say to that?
It's hard to disagree with that notion because when you look at it, I mean, the Bucs gave Mike Evans over $20 million a year on his last contract. The fact that he went across the country for an average deal of 14.3 million and he's only guaranteed 16.5 million. So in reality, it's just a 1 year deal where it's guaranteed money, but he signed for so much less. Then you have the taxes in California. There's no income tax in Florida. Like he turned down all the money. And at the end of the day, it's a chance to compete. And the fact that he saw a better chance to compete in a stacked NFC West division over a lowly NFC South, I think that speaks volumes about the state of the Bucs and really the confidence level in Todd Bowles. And you look across Tampa Bay right now, nobody's a fan of Bowles. And I don't know what he can do to really evoke that confidence. And when you look at his side of the ball, the defense, that's the area where they've struggled.
How concerned should Todd Bowles be about the future of him being the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
He should be quite concerned, very concerned about his future because there's not many coaches in the NFL that are in their 60s to begin with, but especially with a focus on the defensive side of the football. The NFL now is the young offensive mastermind, the gurus that get signed every offseason. So Todd Bowles, he really has to show that his defense is not as antiquated as it looks on the field on Sundays. And I think his job security, it really is at an all-time low, and he should be going into 2026 on the hot seat because Jason Light, he's the one that's been, drafting all these rookies, signing all these free agents. He's been doing all the heavy lifting. It's time for Bowles to really step up. And if he doesn't, next offseason, the talk should be a new head coach.
And we saw a little bit of Baker kind of having to play without Mike Evans last year because of the injuries. How much does this change what the Bucs are able to do on the offensive side of the ball?
I think it changes quite a bit because the Bucs right now don't really have a guy to replace Mike Evans. And not only his larger than life shoes, but also his role as an ex wide receiver. They don't have a 6'5" guy to throw the football to anymore. So you're going to be relying a lot on Chris Godwin Jr. and Emeka Ibuka, but who's going to be that red zone threat? When you're at the 1 yard line throwing a fade, you don't have Mike Evans there to throw it to anymore. So it's going to change the dynamic in a lot of ways. Defenses aren't going to be throwing their attention at Mike Evans, and then at the same time, for Baker Mayfield, he wants to get back to his 2024 form, right? When he threw 41 touchdowns, he was the talk of the town. But to get back to that level, not having Mike Evans or Liam Cohen for that matter, there's so much uncertainty, not only on the defensive side of the football, but now you're looking at the offense and you're like, man, we just lost the greatest offensive player in franchise history. How are we going to replace him? It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Baker look like an MVP candidate for the first month and a half of the season. I mean, what does that kind of regression as the season wore on kind of say about the state of the team?
Well, some of it was injuries. I feel like I've he wasn't 100% in the second half of the season. Kind of showed with his inaccuracy, but with the offense, I think it'll be improved somewhat in terms of the run game because the interior offensive line, you're getting Cody Mauch and Ben Bredesen back, so you're hopeful that Bucky Irving can kind of take a little bit off of Baker Mayfield's shoulders. But at the same time, Mayfield's entering a contract year. Jason Light, Mike Greenberg, they're in the front office right now debating whether or not is he a $50 million quarterback? Is he a $60 million quarterback? At the end of the day, it's up to him. He's the one that's going to determine the wins and losses, which he really did last year. And going forward, I mean, he has to carry the offense, especially without Mike.
So bottom line it for me here, 5, 10 years from now, we're seeing Mike Evans' Hall of Fame speech. How are you explaining who Mike Evans is to someone who's never heard of him before?
Mike Evans is the greatest offensive player in Bucs history. He is as consistent as they come, and he was a pillar for the Tampa Bay community, and I think he always will be. I wouldn't be surprised if someday there's maybe a statue outside of Raymond James Stadium, or if they get a new stadium of number 13. He's just iconic. One of the few icons that Tampa Bay has had. I mean, you look at the 2002 team, you're like, oh man, look at that defense. But for so many years now, it's been Mike Evans. When you go to the stadium, you see all the number 13 jerseys. He's irreplaceable. He's legendary. And man, I can't wait for that Hall of Fame speech. I think he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
What are you expecting from that speech? Do you think it's going to be a real emotional tearjerker, rah rah? What's the vibe?
I don't know if Mike Evans is the real kind of guy to be a tearjerker, but I think he's going to go into Canton, Ohio with that Bucks logo. Like he's going to be enshrined as a Buck. That's what everybody's going to know him as at the end of the day. But Mike, he has some swagger to him, so that speech is going to be something.